This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show. This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show.
YouTube, what is up? I'm your homeboy Josh, back at you, and today we're taking a look at Billy's new device. Yeah, Billy is in the Vape and Heathen, came out with an RDA called the Dead Rabbit. The Dead Rabbit is named after the gangs of New York, the original gang that Leonardo DiCaprio and, Leonardo DiCaprio's younger self and his father, they're all, they get their ass kicked by Daniel Day-Lewis in the beginning. That's the Dead Rabbits. It sort of gets its name from because the deck, you'll see later, kind of looks like a rabbit. It's kind of cool. We'll get back to that. Anyway, so I'm in the forest the other day with Olive, the min pin, and we just happened upon it, just randomly. I don't know why it was there or anything. Just sitting on this tree stump.
Olive, be very, very quiet. We hunt rabbits. They're out here somewhere. I found one. A dead rabbit.
So naturally I take a look at the box, and the box is this interesting green color. This like army green color with Celtic symbols on it, which I thought was kind of random. Celtic symbols down the side, and this cartoony skull and crossbones rabbit with X'd out eyes and tube mods going across it, crossbone style. And at the bottom it says project by Heathen. And it's also in partnership with HellVape, the same company that brought us the Iron Maiden RDA a little while back. We did a review on that one some time ago. The box opens up like a little book, and inside is the stainless steel Dead Rabbit along with this beautiful, really nice blue acrylic drip tip, blue and purple and awesome. And I love when companies are coming out with these great drip tips lately. It's not just the standard Delrin Fair or the standard Metal Fair, or, Ultim is nice too. I like seeing Ultim. I love seeing a lot of Ultim these days, but it's nice to see a really nice colored acrylic drip tip too. Just something to mix it up a bit. It also comes with a standard Delrin drip tip, and it comes with an adapter where you can use your own drip tips, which is always a plus. You get your usual spares and whatnot, extra screws and the like. The engraving on the Dead Rabbit mirrors the same cartoon that we had in the box of, the bunny rabbit with the X'd out eyes and the skull and crossbones tube mods. It's a nice deep engraving. It's not going anywhere. It's a quality style engraving. It says Dead Rabbit over and under the rabbit as well. Three-piece style Addy. You've got your barrel, you've got your deck, you've got your top cap. And of course, your drip tip as well, count the fourth piece, whatever you want. There's a conical shape to the inside of the top cap, definitely gonna help aid in flavor a bit there. And it's got 3 airflow slots. So we've got a single coil option here, which is always a plus these days. I love seeing RDAs are still coming with single coil options because I'm a single coiler at heart, and it's nice to see that. The airflow holes are positioned toward the top of the top cap, which I like too. It allows for a sort of leak-free sort of design. The airflow is going to come in the sides like this, down into the barrel, then back up underneath the coil is the idea. On the bottom it is serialized. I have number 409. It says by Heathen and HellVape with the HellVape logo on top. The deck here is a postless style system, but it's not just any postless style system. The thing about postless decks is that you have to pre-cut your leads, which can be kind of frustrating. I mean, I don't know how many times I've tried to put a coil into a postless deck and realized that I've cut it too short, or I've cut it too long on one side, too short on the other. Billy decided to sort of rethink the way we do postless addies. And he decided that, instead of having to sort of pre-clip our leads, we're going to be able to push our leads into this deck and clip them afterwards, making installation in the postless deck a bit easier. Kind of an interesting concept. We'll get to that. The deck itself, I like the aesthetic of it. The way that the gold balances out with the stainless steel, how the entirety of the deck is almost all stainless steel, including the negative posts for the positive. We went with the gold for an accent. I dig that. It's a nice aesthetic as a whole. It mixes it up a little bit. It adds a nice little accent to the positive post. You know which one's the positive, and it adds a nice aesthetic quality to it, if you ask me. And then you've got a nice block of peak insulator down the middle. The post holes are a good size as well. I want to say that they're 3 millimeters. It could be 2.5. I don't know, my eyes kind of betray me sometimes. But I want to say that they're 3 millimeter post holes. And they're side tension screws, but they're oriented the right way so that when they go down on the leads, they're not going to bend the leads too much out of the way. Looking at the wells, you kind of get an idea of what the intended build is here. The intended build would be across the gap between the posts, one on either side, for a dual coil. And it works well for a single coil there too. The first build I threw in here was actually a single coil stitched Mohawk Alien, and I threw that in one half of the deck. 3 strands of 28 gauge, a 36 gauge Alien Clapton, and a 40 gauge stitch. I want to say it's all nichrome, but something in there might be stainless steel.
Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.
What I noticed with that first build was that being a postless system, there's a lot of empty space inside the chamber. And you know me, I like having some walls within my chamber so that the airflow isn't all loosey-goosey. Some walls within the chamber where air can bounce around, and that's just my style. So I wanted to play around with another way of building dual coils in here, and I decided to build them crisscross, kind of an X kind of shape. And the reason for that was also, sort of a play on words in my head. It's the Dead Rabbit, put an X on it. It's X-rated, Playboy Bunny, Dead Rabbit, Playboy Bunny. Anyway, so the next thing I threw in there was a pair of fused Clapton coils, 9 wraps each, and then I paralleled those up with a bit of round wire. I want to say it's 28 gauge on the cores, it's a 46 gauge fuse, and the parallel is 26. And that's what I've got in here right now. And built that way, it's actually got some pretty good flavor too. I think the reason is because the wicks are helping to create some walls. What I noticed about this device when I had it in single coil mode, and I was rocking that Mohawk Alien, is I wasn't super excited about the flavor. I thought it was okay. It was about, it was maybe a little bit above average, not bad, you know. Started thinking to myself of ways that I could create, you know, more turbulence in the airflow, create walls within the chamber. And then I thought to myself, yeah, you know, make an X, it's going to be, you know, a funny play on words in my head anyway. You're probably rolling your eyes, but yeah, it's funny to me. Anyway, so the way that those wicks are working, they're sort of crisscrossing and they're creating this wall on either side, so there's less room where the air can travel right underneath them. That's my theory anyway. That's how it's working for me. The thing that I was worried about with this kind of build on here, that crisscross, is A, those coils are going to be big because diagonally from, you know, post to post is going to be more space than, you know, across the post, so it's going to ohm out a bit higher, which isn't always a bad thing. I mean, this build, those are wrapped in a 2.5 millimeter diameter, those coils, so they still ohm out, even being, you know, 9 wraps long and, you know, paralleled up with, you know, another 8 wraps of 26, they still ohm out at about 0.19, in that range. You know, it's kind of varied. When I first built it, it was 0.17, now it's at 0.19, so it's kind of moved around a little bit since then, but it's still, I mean, I'm vaping it at about 115 watts, and it's a great vape. You know, it's flavorful, it's cloudy. I'm enjoying this vape a lot more than I was in a single coil mode. And with those extra walls made from the cotton around either side of the coils, I think that that's just working a little bit better for me, the way that that airflow is going to work. So I'd say it's definitely, for me, going to be more of a dual coil Addy than it will be a single coil Addy. It's just not one of those devices that I feel is really successful in a single coil mode, but it works really well in a dual coil mode, really well. What I worried about most with this build was that I was going to get spit back, and I'm not, which is actually really surprising. And I wasn't getting spit back with a single coil either, not at all. There's no spit back on this RDA whatsoever, and that's, I feel, is kind of impressive. I think that's due to the downward facing airflow. You know, it's definitely detracting from that spitback factor. Now, the thing about the Dead Rabbit is that it has features on this device that usually work counter to what I would normally look for in an RDA. Take, for example, the juice well. The juice well is just super, super shallow. I mean, it can't be more than 4 millimeters or so, this juice well, 4.5, 5 millimeters, something like that. Wells on a lot of other devices, I mean, they go, 6 millimeters, 7 millimeters deep. I have some wells that go 10 millimeters deep. I love a deep well, But it works because this barrel is so big. I mean, this barrel has airflow holes that come up to here, so it extends the length of that well quite a bit. And the dual O-rings on the deck work with that to ensure a leak-free design. I haven't gotten any leaking out of this thing at all. It does not leak. It's not leaking out the bottom. It's definitely not leaking out those super high airflow holes. Juice isn't going anywhere in this thing. It's tight as a drum in here. Juice isn't going anywhere. The other thing that I normally don't like in an RDA is when my wicks are just super long. I hate super long wicks normally, because the way I like to build my devices, I usually like to tuck my wicks underneath my coil a little bit and then, move the wicks out of the way so that there's a bit of space underneath the coil where air can travel, but just a bit. I still like my wicks sort of tucked at the edges, I can't do that with this device because the wicks are going to drape down completely over the posts. So you can't put wicks underneath the coils at all, which works counter to the way I like to build my devices. And it doesn't matter so much with this device though, because the air is coming from the top. It's not coming from the side or from the bottom. But it works with that super deep well that's been created between the barrel and the deck. So it works counter to what I would normally look for in an RDA, but those elements combine to create something that actually works really well together. That being said, the whole thing about not having to pre-clip your leads, it works, sort of works, sort of doesn't. Yeah, I can fit my clippers under there, but only to a degree. I mean, it's still a tight fit. I didn't have an issue with it when I put my first build in there. I had a little bit of leftover space when I put my coil in there, and to get a nice clean cut on it, I went in with my clippers and I clipped off the bottom of my lead. Worked fine. Then when I went in there to do the dual coil, I don't know, I felt like I was clipping the post rather than clipping the lead. Like I thought I was going to mar the finish on the post. Because you can fit clippers in there, but it's more like you can fit really small scissors in there is more like it. Clippers are a bit thicker. And it's not easy necessarily to get in there and clip your leads afterwards. Not always. I had a lot more luck with it the first time than I did the second time. The second time I was still pre-clipping my leads, but I will say that it made it easier to pre-clip my leads. Like looking at that and having that space underneath, I had a better idea of where I had to pre-clip my leads in order for them to fit properly to the point where those side tension screws were going to secure the device a bit better. I will say I wish the side tension screws were Phillips head, not flatheads. I think that would have been a bit more successful because the Phillips head, it's kind of a weird angle. You're coming in at this from the side, if you're building it without, picking it up, you're building it on a desk or whatever. If you're building it holding in your hand, you can do that no problem. If you're building on a desk, Phillips head, and maybe even if you're holding it in your hand, I think would work a bit better. You know, it just would have sunk into those screws a bit more easily, those grub screws. Just little things, really. Nitpicky things about an otherwise very good, very interesting device overall. I like it. If I would change anything on it, I would put a locking mechanism. Yeah, I would put a locking mechanism on the deck, honestly. I would. And I wouldn't do that with most RDAs, but I would on this one. A locking mechanism where the barrel can line up with the deck and lock into place. I usually don't like that because, you know, it's kind of limiting in how you can situate your coils. You can, at that point, if you have a locking mechanism between your barrel and your deck, you can't get as creative with your coil building. You can't position a coil just anywhere in the deck and then reposition the airflow where it needs to be so you can get air on it. With this one, I would. The reason is that the deck is so shallow. Even with 2 O-rings on there, this thing is just sliding around all the time like that. So either better tolerances on these O-rings, which I feel would be difficult with the deck being so short, or a locking mechanism there would work a lot better. All in all, I say it's a pretty successful device with some interesting features. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's flavorful, it's cloudy, it's got fun build options, it's got a nice deep well combined with barrel, and it's got a sense of humor about it. You know, when I look at decks, I like to find funny things in there too. You know, the goon, I said it looks like a pair of frogs on a lily pad. But yeah, you know, I have a sense of humor about the way that decks look, and I like that Billy, same wavelength, you know, looks at a deck and sees something funny in it. Same page, man, simpatico, simpatico. And it's something a bit different, which is always something that I like to see in the vape industry, especially these days. Anyway, guys, that is the Dead Rabbit from Billy, the Vape and Heathen, and HellVape. By the way, that partnership, HellVape, Heathen, I think it's pretty awesome, by the way, just in terms of alliteration and nomenclature. It just works really well. Anyway, I appreciate all the things you guys do, the likes, the comments, the shares, all that good stuff. 2 more ways that you can support the channel. I have a list of affiliate links in the description on every video, and I also have a Patreon account if you feel like making a contribution to the channel. Till next time, I'm your homeboy Josh. Vape on, vapers.